The night Emma Carter returned home, she felt the air shift like a warning she couldn't decode. Every room looked familiar, yet something pulsed beneath the surface. Her mother smiled too quickly, as if rehearsed. Her sister avoided her eyes, clutching a phone like a lifeline. And Douglas Reed, polished as ever, greeted her with a warmth that never reached his gaze. Emma sensed the old tension coil round her ankles. It tightened with every breath she took. She had spent years mapping data patterns, but nothing compared to the patterns here. This house held its own equations, its own rules, its own silence. And she had always been the one variable that refused to align. Tonight, the system felt unstable, fragile, close to breaking. Emma remembered being 8 when she first learned the shape of Douglas Reed's anger. It never exploded. It condensed, a quiet storm that spread through walls like a cold draft. He rarely shouted, but his voice could slice a room into silence. He would lower his tone and make her feel smaller without raising a hand. Her mother would hurry to collect dishes, pretending not to hear. Olivia, still little, would hide behind the couch until everything settled. Emma grew up watching the patterns form. Douglas controlled space the way some people controlled budgets. He decided what music was allowed and which lights could be on. He managed the temperature, the groceries, even the family's laughter. Any joke at the wrong time earned a slow, icy stare. Emma learned to read those stares faster than she learned to read books. He corrected her posture at dinner. He inspected her homework like an auditor, reviewing faulty accounts. When she asked questions, he accused her of being disrespectful. When she stayed quiet, he called her ungrateful. There was no right answer. Her mother would whisper that keeping peace was easier than resisting. Emma never understood how silence could be considered peace. She remembered one evening when Douglas broke her science fair project. He didn't smash it. He adjusted it until pieces snapped under his fingers. Then he blamed her for building something fragile. Her mother apologized on Emma's behalf. Olivia repeated the apology, unsure what she was apologizing for. Emma kept the broken pieces in a shoebox for years. Not because of the project, because it reminded her that he could destroy anything gently. As Emma grew older, Douglas refined his methods. He started monitoring her schedule. He criticized her clothes, her grades, her friends. He said it was guidance. He said she needed structure. But his structure felt like a cage. Her mother insisted that Douglas only wanted the best for them. Olivia insisted that Emma provoked him. Emma tried to believe both. Some nights, she convinced herself she was overreacting. Other nights, she knew she was surviving. When Emma left for college, the distance felt like oxygen. She could breathe without permission. She could speak without calculating. But every holiday break pulled her back into the old rhythms. Douglas would greet her with controlled politeness. Her mother would smile with relief and fear intertwined. Olivia would act cheerful, trying to maintain the illusion. And Emma would feel the old tension slide under her skin again. The house never changed, even when she did. She learned emotional patterns, the way she learned statistical models. Small incidents accumulated. Small comments repeated. Small punishments stacked. The pattern was consistent. The pattern was intentional. And yet, Emma kept rewriting the memory into something softer. She told herself he was strict, not cruel. She told herself it wasn't abuse if it left no bruises. She told herself families were complicated, not damaging. But deep down, she knew the truth had been buried under years of denial. The quiet violence had shaped her childhood more than any lesson at school. And now, standing in the present, she finally saw it as a system. Predictable, calculable, and slowly tightening around everyone who lived inside it. The night of the anniversary party was supposed to be elegant and harmless. Soft lights filled the living room, and guests praised Douglas as if he were made of gold. Emma stood near the edge of the crowd, sipping sparkling water she didn't want. She watched her mother glide between conversations with a nervous smile. Olivia hovered close to Douglas, laughing at every remark he made. Emma felt like a foreign object in a machine running perfectly without her. Douglas noticed her silence and approached with his polished charm. He made a comment about her attitude, wrapped in a joke meant to humiliate. A few guests laughed politely, unsure why. Emma answered calmly, refusing to shrink. Douglas's smile froze. Something shifted in his eyes, quick and sharp like a blade catching light. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a warning she knew too well. She didn't back down. For a moment, time stalled between them. The room kept buzzing, but the air around Emma thickened. Douglas asked another leading question, baiting her in front of everyone. Emma replied with a clean, factual statement that exposed his lie. A few heads turned. Douglas's jaw tightened. His hand twitched once, like a reflex he couldn't hide. And then he did it. He raised his hand and slapped her across the face. It wasn't loud, but the silence that followed felt deafening. Every guest froze with expressions trapped between confusion and disbelief. Emma tasted metal on her tongue and forced herself to stand upright. Her mother's wine glass trembled in her hand. Olivia stared at the ground, as if her shoes could swallow her whole. Douglas acted as if nothing extraordinary had happened. He adjusted his cuff and told her not to embarrass the family. Emma breathed slowly, refusing to let him see her break. No one moved toward her. Not even her mother. After a long second, Olivia rushed over and grabbed her arm. She pulled Emma toward the hallway with frantic whispers. "Please don't make a scene," Olivia begged. "Not tonight," he stressed. "You provoked him." Emma stared at her sister, stunned by the loyalty misplaced so deeply. The music in the living room resumed, as if someone pressed play. Laughter sparkled again, trying to overwrite what had just happened. Emma realized the entire house was built to protect Douglas, not them. Olivia squeezed her arm harder, pleading with wide eyes. Emma gently removed her hand. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She didn't explain. She simply walked through the front door and stepped into the cold night air. No one followed. Not her mother. Not her sister. Not the man who claimed to be their pillar. As she walked away from the glowing windows, Emma felt something crack inside. It wasn't her pride or her heart. It was the last thread tying her to the illusion of a family. She didn't know what would come next. But she knew one thing with absolute clarity. She was done being the variable they tried to silence. The morning after the party, Emma woke with a clarity she had never felt before. Her face still stung, but the pain sharpened her focus instead of weakening it. She reached for her phone and began photographing the red mark on her cheek. Each image was precise, time-stamped, undeniable. She opened her laptop and started combing through years of emails and messages. Threats, insults, manipulations, all recorded and sorted. She found the old spreadsheet tracking Douglas's finances and habits. Each entry became a potential piece of evidence. Emma collected receipts, bank statements, and contracts quietly stashed over the years. Even her childhood journals revealed the patterns of control and intimidation. She scanned documents, uploaded images, and backed up files to multiple encrypted drives. Every memory, every small injury, every manipulated conversation became a datum in her growing archive. Her mind worked like software, analyzing a complex dataset. She realized the power of precision over emotion. The prenup her mother had signed years ago lay folded in a drawer. Emma opened it and read slowly. A clause allowed a child to restrict Douglas from using shared property in cases of abuse. It was obscure, buried but perfect. Emma drafted notes for her lawyer, detailing the timeline, patterns, and potential breaches. She wrote calmly, each sentence measured and intentional. She reached out to Mariah Jensen, a lawyer specializing in family law. Emma explained everything with clarity and logic, leaving no room for interpretation. Mariah reviewed the evidence and nodded. "This isn't a story," she said. "This is a legal case. Every document, every time-stamped photo, every thread is actionable." Emma felt a strange satisfaction, not vengeance, but control. For years, Douglas had dictated the terms of her life. Now she would dictate the terms of his consequences. She organized digital folders by type: financial, emotional, physical, social. She created charts of interactions, patterns of abuse, and timelines of events. She planned her next steps with the precision of a data analyst mapping a complex system. Each email to a lawyer, each notarized document, each photograph had a purpose. Her anger had transformed into strategy. She drafted letters to banks, prepared documents to restrict property, and outlined requests for temporary orders. Everything had to be methodical, irrefutable, and airtight. Emma reviewed her work twice, then 3 times. No loopholes, no emotional appeals, only facts. She felt a rare calm settle over her, a quiet anticipation of action. She wasn't preparing for confrontation. She was preparing for resolution. Douglas's network of power and reputation was vulnerable. The laws he had ignored, the society that had praised him blindly, all could now serve her. Emma packed physical evidence in a secure case. Digital evidence was encrypted and stored in multiple locations. She rehearsed her timeline of events mentally. Everything she had endured became a weapon of precision, not rage. For the first time, she felt the balance shift. The system that had controlled her life was now measurable, analyzable, and dismantleable. And Emma Carter was the analyst who would rewrite the rules. Emma and Mariah filed the petition for a temporary restraining order early in the morning. The court accepted it within hours. Douglas received notice to vacate the house immediately. He read the paper with disbelief. He thought rules didn't apply to him. The letter was precise, legal, undeniable. Emma notified the bank. She sent documents proving Douglas was under investigation for domestic abuse. All his pending loans and credit lines were frozen. A multi-million-dollar property deal he had been planning ground to a halt. Emails went out to his business partners, anonymous but factual. Evidence of threats, control, and manipulations were included. Partners paused negotiations, reassessing their trust. Reputation, meticulously built over decades, began to crack. Douglas tried to maintain composure. He called Emma repeatedly. She ignored the calls. His messages were left unread. Every attempt to assert authority failed. He went to the house, expecting resistance, confrontation, or negotiation. The locks had been changed. His furniture replaced. His photographs removed. He tried the front door key. It didn't work. He walked around, searching for another entrance. Neighbors watched silently, some puzzled, others curious. The police had been informed. Douglas couldn't step in without facing arrest. Every plan he had relied on to control the household collapsed. Emma monitored it all, methodical, calm. She had anticipated every move. Each action had a contingency. Her lawyer ensured every legal step was airtight. The property was secure. Douglas's access to funds was restricted. He had influence, but no control. His phone calls to associates were returned with caution, skepticism, and questions. Emails he sent demanding explanations went unanswered. Social media rumors began to circulate. Colleagues whispered in hallways. Reputation began to fracture. Douglas tried to intimidate through messages, but they were documented. Each threat reinforced the legal case against him. The house, once his kingdom, now had boundaries he could not cross. Emma walked through rooms she had once feared. Every corner, every hallway was hers to navigate. She left notes for her mother and Olivia, explaining the next legal steps. Safety protocols were in place. No one could claim ignorance. Douglas attempted to circumvent the system. Every attempt triggered legal consequences. The network he relied upon for influence was compromised. Emma had quantified, organized, and weaponized evidence. Her strategy was precise, deliberate, and effective. By the end of the week, Douglas had no immediate access to property, finances, or authority. He stayed in a cheap hotel, frustrated and powerless. Emma documented his movements, legal notices, and communications meticulously. Every action reinforced her case. Every threat he made added to the record. Douglas realized, perhaps for the first time, that control could be stripped entirely. His power, carefully curated for years, was dismantled by methodical precision. Emma's actions were not impulsive. They were calculated. They were data-driven. The legal system, once ignored, now enforced boundaries. Douglas had underestimated the methodical mind of the one variable he had failed to suppress. Emma was no longer just surviving the system. She was controlling it. And the system was responding exactly as it should. Douglas Reed woke to silence in the hotel room, a silence that unsettled him. No calls from associates, no urgent emails, no familiar confirmations of power. His investments were frozen. His loans suspended. Every partner he relied on had paused dealings. Rumors circulated quietly but effectively. The man everyone admired suddenly seemed fragile. Douglas tried to assert authority over Emma by calling repeatedly. Each call went unanswered. Messages piled up without reply. He attempted to reach his mother and Olivia. They refused to answer. The house he had controlled for decades was out of reach. Locks changed, doors barred, furniture replaced. His photographs vanished. His trophies gone. Douglas drove to the neighborhood, expecting confrontation. Neighbors watched. Some whispered. Some stared. He tried to open the front door. The key did not fit. He tested windows and side entrances. Everything was blocked. Police had been notified of his previous behavior. He could not enter without legal consequences. Douglas felt the first real panic of his life. His power, once unquestioned, evaporated. At work, colleagues grew cautious. Meetings were postponed. Partners emailed inquiries to legal teams before responding. His reputation, curated over decades, began to crumble. Every public interaction now carried risk. A simple misstep could become documented evidence. Douglas attempted intimidation through emails. Each one was copied, time-stamped, and filed. Every threat strengthened Emma's legal position. He spent nights in a cheap hotel, restless and anxious. The world he had controlled seemed to exist without him. Financial statements, bank alerts, legal notices, everything reminded him he was powerless. Emma monitored every movement. Every legal document, every phone call, every attempt at interference was recorded. She anticipated his strategies before he enacted them. He tried to regain control of Olivia and their mother. They refused to comply with his demands. Emma's preparations made every attempt futile. His empire of influence, meticulously built, now had gaps he could not bridge. Douglas realized he had no sanctuary, no home, no immediate authority. Even minor attempts at reclaiming power carried legal consequences. His identity, tied to control and respect, was dissolving. He could not dictate emotions in his household anymore. He could not manipulate perception outside it. Douglas attempted to contact business partners to clarify misinformation. Every message was met with caution, doubt, and delays. Social circles whispered about his abrupt disappearance and legal restrictions. Each day his influence waned. Every plan he made was countered by Emma's meticulous strategy. He attempted to intimidate neighbors or intermediaries. Each attempt strengthened the evidence against him. He spent hours packing, restless, trying to reclaim authority that no longer existed. His pride, deeply entwined with dominance, was under siege. Every morning, Emma checked court documents. Everything was in order. Every restriction, every frozen asset, every restraining order remained intact. Douglas faced the reality of total loss. The house, the finances, the control, all stripped away. He had underestimated Emma, the variable he could not suppress. The power he wielded effortlessly for years was gone. Every method of influence was countered. For the first time, Douglas Reed understood what it felt like to be powerless. And in that moment, his empire began to collapse entirely. Weeks passed. Emma received a call from her mother on a new phone. Her voice was hesitant, cautious, fragile. Douglas could not trace it. Her mother admitted fear, exhaustion, confusion. Emma returned to the house, but this time with strategy, not fear. The door was open, but the atmosphere had shifted. Every corner, every hallway, no longer whispered Douglas's authority. The house felt like a monument to a regime that had crumbled. Emma walked through rooms slowly, noting each change. Her mother and Olivia followed silently, wary and unsure. Emma set down a folder of documents on the kitchen table. It contained divorce papers, property transfers, and final legal orders. She explained calmly, step by step, every decision she had made. Her mother listened, overwhelmed but relieved. Olivia's eyes shifted between fear and understanding. Emma gave each of them space to ask questions. She answered without anger, without guilt, without hesitation. No room for denial remained. The power Douglas had wielded was entirely removed. Every legal boundary was clear and enforceable. Emma guided them through the steps to secure safety and independence. Her mother signed the property transfer, relinquishing all control Douglas had once claimed. Olivia acknowledged her own complicity in silence, facing her mistakes. Emma did not lecture or scold. She presented facts, evidence, and options. Every choice reinforced their autonomy and safety. The house was no longer a battlefield. It became a place of clarity and order. Douglas could no longer enter, no longer threaten, no longer manipulate. The family faced the consequences of years of silence. No one could hide behind excuses or obedience. Emma's methodical approach left no ambiguity. Her mother and Olivia began to grasp the reality of what had happened. Freedom felt heavy, strange, and unfamiliar. Emma reminded them that survival now required accountability. Every document, every signature, every action solidified a future free from Douglas's influence. She reassured them that fear was natural but unnecessary now. The legal system enforced boundaries that Douglas could not breach. Emma walked through the house with calm authority. Every room reflected order, safety, and clarity. No furniture, no photograph, no object reminded them of his control. Her mother began to breathe more easily. Olivia's shoulders loosened for the first time in years. Emma set final documents on the table, nodding their completion. Every form signed, every order in place, every restriction enforced. The family could no longer claim ignorance or helplessness. Emma explained that their lives now belonged to them, not to fear or manipulation. The weight of past years lingered, but did not define the present. Douglas's absence was total. The system he had relied on to dominate was dismantled. Emma had restored balance with precision, not rage. Her presence was steady, deliberate, and unyielding. She ensured every legal and personal boundary was unbreachable. Her mother and sister began to see the house as safe, not threatening. For the first time, they understood that power without accountability leads only to collapse. Emma did not celebrate. She did not smile triumphantly. She felt quiet satisfaction in order restored. The family faced reality fully, without illusions. Every document, every signature, every precaution marked a new beginning. Emma had orchestrated the transition from fear to stability. And finally, the house was theirs to inhabit without the shadow of Douglas Reed. Douglas Reed's empire of control lay in ruins. Assets frozen, deals collapsed, reputation shattered. Every attempt to assert authority met legal barriers. His power, meticulously built, was gone. The house no longer belonged to him. Emma watched as the final documents were signed. Her mother held the keys, her signature on the transfer complete. Olivia stood quietly, processing the reality of independence. Douglas could not enter, threaten, or manipulate. The restraining orders were absolute, unbreachable. Emma did not feel triumph. She did not feel vengeance. She felt calm. The system he had relied on to dominate was dismantled with precision. Every action, every calculation, every piece of evidence secured stability. No one could distort the truth anymore. The house became a space of order, not fear. Emma left it behind, without hesitation. Her steps were measured, confident, purposeful. She had rewritten the rules of her life. Freedom was quiet but absolute. Douglas Reed was powerless. The family could now exist on their own terms. Emma carried no anger, only clarity. The variable he had tried to suppress had recalibrated the entire system. She walked into the future with a calm certainty. Every boundary enforced, every danger neutralized. The past remained, but it no longer dictated her life. Her life was hers, her autonomy complete. And for the first time, Emma felt the true weight of peace.